Attention, your paradigm is about to shift at the intersection of fact and reason. You're entering Kingston Country.
I'm Dan Kingston, and you're listening to the Dan Kingston Podcast. Welcome to Kingston Country. A man from California reportedly dies from the COVID vaccine. Says he was treated as a COVID vaccine human guinea pig. He wrote that before he died. How many people have died from the COVID-19 vaccines? I know it's a taboo topic. You're not supposed to ask this question, and if you Google it, it's been banned from the Google search results. I'm asking, how many people have died from the COVID-19 vaccines? And the other stories, you got riots in New York City and Portland. Surprise, surprise, the cycle of violence continues as riots are declared. They're burning their own cities down. And these are not peaceful protests. Maybe some people out there are peaceful, but by and large, you're looking at buildings, again, being burned down. It's a cycle of violence. Ex-New York Times reporter, by the way, she wrote about how tragic it is when buildings and these are a lot of the times mom and pop shops, family-owned businesses that burn down. Her story was banned until after the election because she was talking about how, inconveniently, how really sad it is for these mom and pop shops that get burned to the ground by rioters. That didn't sit well with the New York Times. They wanted to go for their liberal bent, far left. And of course, rioters are good. Rioting is good and it's patriotic. And there's no problem with burning your own communities down to the ground. But back to the main story of the day. The man from California, Gilroy. Now, Gilroy is outside San Jose, small town in California. And this man wrote in before he died that he was being treated like a human guinea pig in his obituary. There was a statement that he wrote that was put into his obituary by his wife. Quote, "On August 17th, I received the Moderna vaccine and started feeling ill 3 days later." Now I'm going to pause for a second. This is one story that I'm going to read to you. The bigger question is how many people have died from the COVID-19 vaccines overall, right? Because one story, while tragic, it's not going to shed light on that. But I want to show you this story as an example because one is too many. He wrote, quote, "I developed multi-system inflammation and multi-system failure that medical professionals could not stop. My muscles disappeared as if to disintegrate. I was in the ICU for several weeks, stabbed with needles up to 24 times a day for several weeks while receiving 6 to 7 IVs. Oh my God." He goes on, quote, "It was constant torture that I cannot describe." And then this is where he says, quote, "I was no longer treated as a human with feelings and a life. I was nothing more than a COVID vaccine human guinea pig, and the doctors were excited to participate in my fascinating progression onto death." Quote. I mean, it's too shocking. You question whether this is true. This is a real obituary, and it's in it he documents his case. But overall, how many people have died from the vaccines? You have the National Institute of Health, the NIH. Anthony Fauci headed this thing. They're admitting they accidentally funded research. They purposely funded the research, but it accidentally contributed to a more deadly form of coronavirus. They admitted that last month, the NIH did. And Anthony Fauci is very defensive when it comes to his participation, in funding the Wuhan biolab in China, where this thing may have leaked out from. Now, he's saying that, you got to be careful about your definitions, about gain of function, and they were very careful, and everything was highly, highly peer-reviewed. So he's obviously on the defensive right now. What about this guy in Gilroy? He's saying that he was treated as a human guinea pig, a vaccine human guinea pig. Do you believe this story? And is this just a one-off event? You just one thing, maybe it was related to the vaccine, maybe not, you can't prove it. Or is this emblematic of a larger problem that people they're not, let's be honest about it. They're saying there's zero risk. Zero risk. How many people have died from the COVID-19 vaccines? Well, it looks like, according to what's been submitted, there's been about almost 10,000 deaths, 9,810. That's been what's been reported on the CDC website. Now, not all of these could be from the vaccine, but this is what's been reported. It's self-reporting. So some of these, maybe there's more people who didn't report it, and there's some that are less. This is not scientific, but this is something the CDC uses, 9,810 among people that have received the COVID-19 vaccine. That's out of, and this is what they put on the vaccine, on the CDC website in terms of the vaccine deaths. They put 442 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines were administered between December 14th and November 15th. Okay, so just during that 1 year period, you had 9,810 deaths, right? And that's pretty accurate. That's pretty current. When did the vaccines start being administered? That's the question. Do they start in December? They start before that. And you got to remember, when they say that there's 442 million doses, well, there's 2 doses that make up a treatment, at least for the vast majority, either Pfizer or Moderna. It's 2 doses make 1 treatment. So really, it's kind of misleading here. They're saying 442 million doses has resulted in 9,810 reported deaths. That's 0.0022%. But really, you got to divide the 442 by half, right? Because they're talking about doses. They're talking about doses. You know, we're talking about treatments. There's only been 221 million treatments. And who cares if you die? What you want to know is what's the rate of dying from the treatment, not from an individual dose. So really, it's a little bit higher. You're looking at a death rate of 0.0044%, right? Not 22, unless you're looking at who cares about the rate of dying from a dose if you're going to take 2 doses? Anyway, do you hear that Anthony Fauci admitted that they did fund research that accidentally resulted in a more deadly form of coronavirus? Did you hear about that? Is this a surprise to you? Is this a Dan Kingston conspiracy theorist? It's not. The NIH, this is an American, they were talking about the National Institute of Health. They contributed to funding that contributed to this thing. That's what's being alleged. That's what people are alleging. That's what it looks like. That's what the documents and the evidence is showing, that it's not all China. Actually, we were involved too. And by and large, funding some of the most deadly diseases and research outside of the United States. So if anything went wrong, I guess they were hoping it would infect China and we'd be safe, but I guess not. I guess it didn't happen that way. Or was this a deliberate attack? That I would not rule that out. Would you? That this was a deliberate attack. Maybe we accidentally contributed to it, and then China weaponized it and attacked the world with it. I would not rule that out as a possibility, but I think more likely a lab leak. Looks like a lab leak. And that's what's so scary. Do you take the risk having an experimental vaccine, a new technology that they don't understand, that the government scientists really can't evaluate because they don't understand the science themselves? Or do you take a chance with a biologically engineered, perhaps a bioweapon, a lab leak from China that you don't want? You don't want to lose your taste and smell. You don't want that. Even if there's a low chance of you personally dying if you're good shape and fit. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're obese. Maybe you actually have something to fear from it. And you want to get in better shape, but easier said than done, right? I get it. And so maybe the vaccine is a viable option for you. I don't mean to scare you out of taking a vaccine. I mean, but could you imagine being in a hospital? First of all, this poor guy in Gilroy, he was resistant. He didn't want it. He didn't want the vaccine. His doctor convinced him into it. And then this ends up happening. The poor guy. Can you imagine being treated like a guinea pig and this horrible things happening from the vaccine to your body? Why does it affect some people this way? It just, and why in the media do they talk about it like it's zero risk? The vaccine is zero risk. Because they say, oh, well, you're much more likely to die from COVID. If COVID has a 0.03% death rate, and the vaccines have a 0.0044%, obviously your risk of dying is way, higher from COVID, even though they're both pretty low. That being said, most people, aren't going to get COVID, right? Or are most people going to get it? But if you're in an area where you might not get COVID, you might never be subjected to COVID. I mean, how do you calculate these risks for individuals? You have to do it on a local community level, but you have a top-down CDC, FDA, the media, CNN, telling you what's best for you and your family. You should be able to make an informed decision on your own, knowing that there's risks involved, whether you get vaccinated or don't. There's risks. Hey, if you could decide to get vaccinated, you go there to the pharmacy, you could get hit and killed in a car crash on your way to the pharmacy getting vaccinated, couldn't you? Everything's a risk. If you go outside your house, you're taking a risk. How do you calculate risks for you and your family? And the riots in New York City and Portland and across the country, are you surprised by this? Not to change subjects, but I do want to talk about it because it's an endless cycle of violence, isn't it? And it's shot down this idea that there are businesses, mom and pop, family-owned businesses that are burned down. People want to defend their communities, and this is a problem because this is what causes people like Kyle to go out there and to try to defend their own communities. And when it's written about, like this reporter, Nellie Bowles, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her last name right, but she was an ex-New York Times reporter. They wouldn't publish her story till after the election because it just didn't fit with the narrative, right? It's supposed to be good to riot. And that's what's happening right now. The media is encouraging these riots, and we're supposed to say that that's a good thing. These are necessary riots. Get angry, break things, ruin Thanksgiving. They're radicals, aren't they? The loudest voices. And they're the radicals, and they're actually causing a lot of damage. But the good news is that most Americans see right through this. Most Americans want to end the cycle of violence. Most Americans want to extend an olive branch, actually. They want to have peace. They want to get through this. Now have endless riots, police shooting, and then a trial, and then more riots, and then another police shooting, and then a trial. And then it goes on. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting, isn't it? Did you hear an armored truck spills thousands of dollars? One of these money bank trucks spilled thousands of dollars on a California highway. People were, slamming their brakes on the side of the road, jumping out of their cars, grabbing cash like it's some kind of, game show, like cash giveaway game show. Can you imagine that scenario? 2 people were arrested. They got locked out of their cars. They got locked out of their car as they were swiping the cash, and the police, they suspected these people were, this poor guy driving his armored truck. All of a sudden, he has thousands of dollars. There's some video of him trying to get the cash himself, but it's, thousands of dollars flying around. He gives up. He starts videotaping other people grabbing the cash. Now the highway patrol is saying, if you took the money on Highway 5 in California, you got to give it back. You got to give it back. This is not your money. What would you do if you grabbed a whole bunch of cash flying out of an armored truck? First of all, would you pull over? I probably would. Would you grab the cash? I probably would. I'm just being completely honest. When they came and they asked you to give it back, would you own up to it? Would you get in trouble for giving it back? I mean, I don't want to know that if I give the money back, I'm not going to get in trouble for it. I don't think I don't think I would pull over on a freeway like that, because that could be dangerous. I don't know. Maybe I'd just keep driving. It'd be hard to see what exactly came out of the truck. If there's traffic and you weren't going fast, I don't know. Have you ever been in a situation like that where just like money's flying around like in a game show? People, maybe they thought they were dreaming or something. Some people went to jail for it. You can't do that. You can't just grab flying money. Well, I mean, this is going to be kind of a shorter episode, but the one thing, I'll leave you with, and I'm going to ask this questions, about the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. Should Kyle sue for defamation? Right? Nicholas Sandmann, remember from the Covington Catholic, he was portrayed as confronting and being disrespectful towards Native American during the protest on the Capitol a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember that. And he says that Kyle should sue. Nicholas Sandmann, he won a multi-million-dollar settlement against CNN. I mean, he really took it to town, made a lot of money off suing people for defamation because they portrayed Nicholas as a guy that was instigating a confrontation. Actually, when you looked at the video more, you could see it was actually the Native American was actually being more confrontational. It wasn't Nicholas. And the Covington Catholic, they were really misrepresented, especially Nicholas. So, does Kyle have a case? I think he does. If you remember, Biden said he was a white supremacist. I mean, even Chelsea Chandler, I don't even really know who she is, but she has a lot of followers, or he does, or whoever this person is. They said that Kyle's a white supremacist. I mean, just the other day. I mean, it's like we didn't have a trial. We didn't have a jury. We didn't see the video. They're a cult. They're a cult. Joe Rogan says it the best when he put it that way, and he described it really well. However the case was going to fall, you could tell that the far left was going to be a cult about it. So I think that Kyle should sue. I think he should. He's been put through hell. I think he should donate a lot of it, towards somehow ending the cycle of violence. Wouldn't that be great? If he could sue the living pants off CNN and then use it somehow for an actual force for good. I would support that.
Kingston Country. You've been listening to the Dan Kingston Podcast.